I never thought I would say this on camera, but my ex-husband has 47 biological children. 47, and 3 of them are mine. Triplets, to be exact. Triplets I conceived using his own sperm bank donations, without him ever knowing. And the best part? He is now paying me $4,000 a month in child support for children he never agreed to have. But trust me, that is not even the craziest part of this story. Not even close. If this story hits different, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss the next one. Let me take you back to where it all started. My name is Rachel, and 6 years ago I was married to a man named Derek Holloway. Derek was charming, 6'2", dark hair, blue eyes, the kind of guy who could walk into a room and make every woman turn her head. We met at a friend's barbecue in Austin, Texas in the summer of 2017. He was grilling burgers and cracking jokes, and I fell for him hard. We were married within a year. For the first 2 years, everything was perfect. Or at least, I thought it was perfect. Derek worked as a sales manager at a car dealership, and I was a dental hygienist. We had a cute little house in the suburbs, 2 dogs, and we were trying for a baby. That was the thing that mattered most to me. I wanted to be a mother more than anything in the world. But after a year of trying, nothing happened. I went to the doctor. I got tested. Everything was fine on my end. I begged Derek to get tested too, but he refused. He said there was no way the problem was with him. He said his family had great genetics. He said I just needed to relax and stop stressing about it. Classic Derek, always deflecting, never taking responsibility. But even during the good times, there were cracks I chose not to see. Derek would come home late and say he had been working overtime, but his clothes never smelled like the dealership. He started putting a passcode on his phone, which he had never done before. He would take calls in the garage and come back inside acting like nothing happened. I would ask who called, and he would say, quote, "Just work stuff, babe," end quote. Just work stuff. That became his answer for everything. My mother once told me that when a man starts locking his phone, it is time to start asking questions. I wish I had listened to her sooner. Then in March of 2020, right when the world was shutting down, I found a text on his phone. I was not snooping, I swear. His phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower, and the preview showed a message from someone named Tiffany with a heart emoji. The message said, quote, "I cannot wait to see you tonight, baby," end quote. My stomach dropped. I picked up the phone and scrolled through the messages. There were hundreds of them. Tiffany was 23 years old. She worked at a tanning salon. She called him daddy. I wanted to vomit. I confronted Derek that night. He did not even try to deny it. He just shrugged and said, quote, "Rachel, I have not been happy for a long time. You are always talking about babies and doctors and ovulation charts. I need someone who is fun," end quote. Fun. He needed someone who was fun. 3 years of marriage thrown away because I wanted to start a family and he wanted a girl from a tanning salon. The divorce was finalized in August of 2020. He moved in with Tiffany immediately. I got the house, which was barely worth anything because we still owed most of the mortgage. He got the dogs, which broke my heart almost as much as the affair. I was 31 years old, divorced and alone in a pandemic. For the next year, I was a wreck. I barely ate. I stopped going out. My sister Megan practically had to drag me out of bed some mornings. But slowly, I started putting myself back together. I threw myself into work. I started running. I joined a support group for women going through divorce. And I never stopped wanting to be a mother. In the fall of 2021, I started seriously looking into artificial insemination. I was 32, single, and I did not want to wait for some perfect man to come along. I went to a fertility clinic in downtown Austin called Lone Star Fertility. The doctor, Dr. Patricia Vance, was incredible. She walked me through the whole process, explained the sperm donor catalog, and told me I had excellent chances. Now here is where fate decided to step in and turn my life into an absolute circus. The clinic had an online portal where you could browse donor profiles. They did not show faces, but they listed physical characteristics, education, medical history, hobbies, and a short personal statement. I was scrolling through profiles one evening with a glass of wine, and I came across donor number 8814. 6'2", dark brown hair, blue eyes, played college baseball, worked in automotive sales, born and raised in Texas. Hobbies included grilling, hiking, and watching action movies. My hand started shaking. I literally felt the blood drain from my face. I put down the wine glass because I was afraid I would drop it. I read the profile again, and one more time. I read every detail, cross-referencing it with everything I knew about Derek. The height was exact. The eye color was exact. The college sport was exact. The career field was exact. The birth year matched. Even the hobbies were identical: grilling, hiking, action movies. That was Derek's entire personality in 3 words. Then I saw the personal statement. It said, quote, "I am donating because I believe in helping families achieve their dreams. I come from a big family and I have always believed the more love in the world the better," end quote. That was Derek. I knew it in my bones. Derek had played baseball at Sam Houston State. He worked at a car dealership. He was exactly 6'2" with dark hair and blue eyes. And that line about a big family? His mother had 6 kids. That was his line. He used to say it at dinner parties, but I needed proof. I could not just accuse a sperm bank of having my ex-husband in their catalog without evidence. So I did some digging. I found out that Derek had been struggling financially after the divorce. Tiffany had expensive taste, and car sales were not what they used to be. A friend of mine who still worked near his dealership mentioned that he had been picking up side gigs. Sperm donation paid between $500 and $1,500 per month depending on the bank. For Derek, that was easy money. I called the clinic and asked how long donor 8814 had been in the program. The receptionist told me he had been an active donor for 3 years. 3 years. That meant he started donating while we were still married. While I was crying every month over negative pregnancy tests, while I was begging him to see a fertility doctor, this man was literally selling his sperm to strangers for cash. He was fertile the entire time. He just did not want children with me. That realization hit me like a freight train. I sat on my bathroom floor and cried for 2 hours. I cried for every negative pregnancy test. I cried for every fight we had about seeing a fertility doctor. I cried for every time he told me to relax, to stop stressing, to give it time. He knew the whole time that there was nothing wrong with him. He was producing enough viable sperm to supply an entire fertility clinic, and he let me believe that my body was the problem. He let me blame myself. For 2 years, I thought something was broken inside of me, and the whole time he was making money off the very thing he refused to give me. Then I stopped crying, and I got angry. Not regular angry, not screaming into a pillow angry, not keying his car angry, although I considered that too. I am talking about cold, calculating, revenge is a dish best served frozen angry. The kind of anger that clears your mind instead of clouding it. The kind where you stop shaking and start thinking. I poured myself another glass of wine, opened my laptop, and started researching Texas family law. I called Dr. Vance the next morning and told her I wanted to use donor 8814. She said he was one of their most popular donors. Multiple vials were available. I asked how many. She checked and said there were 14 vials remaining. I bought all 14. It cost me nearly $28,000. I put it on 2 credit cards and took out a small personal loan. My sister thought I was insane. My therapist strongly advised against it. My best friend Karen said, and I quote, "Rachel, this is either the most brilliant or the most unhinged thing anyone has ever done," end quote. I told her it was both. Dr. Vance performed the insemination procedure in January of 2022. We used 2 vials to maximize the chances, and because the universe apparently has a twisted sense of humor, it worked on the first try. Not only did it work, but the ultrasound at 8 weeks showed 3 heartbeats. Triplets. I was having triplets. I sat in that ultrasound room staring at the screen with tears rolling down my face, and the nurse asked me if I was okay. I started laughing. I could not stop laughing. She probably thought I was having a breakdown. And maybe I was. But in that moment, I realized what I had done. I had used my ex-husband's own donated sperm to get pregnant with triplets, and he had absolutely no idea. I spent the next few weeks preparing. I set up the nursery. I converted the guest bedroom into a baby room and went to Target and bought 3 of everything. 3 cribs, 3 car seats, 3 changing pads. My credit card was screaming, but I did not care. I was finally going to be a mother, and Derek Holloway was going to pay for it in more ways than one. I also started journaling. Every day I would write down my thoughts, my plans, and the irony of the situation. One entry from March of 2022 just says in all caps, quote, "He told me he was not ready for kids and now he has donated enough sperm to populate a small town," end quote. My therapist read that entry and had to leave the room for a minute. I think she was laughing. The pregnancy was rough. Triplets are no joke. I was on bed rest by month 5. Megan moved in with me to help. Karen started a meal train with our friend group. And in August of 2022, I gave birth to 3 beautiful, healthy babies, 2 boys and a girl. I named them James, Oliver, and Sophie. They were perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and they all had their father's blue eyes. Now, here is where I had to make a decision. I could have just raised them on my own and never told anyone who the donor was. Plenty of women do that. But I was a single mother of triplets working as a dental hygienist. Do you know how much childcare costs for 3 babies? It is astronomical. And there was a man out there, my ex-husband, who had voluntarily put his genetic material into a bank for anyone to use. Texas law had some interesting provisions about this, and I had done my research. I hired a lawyer named Gloria Chen. Gloria was a family law attorney who specialized in non-traditional parental rights cases. She was 5'0", wore power suits, and had the demeanor of a pit bull in heels. I told her the whole story. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, quote, "This is going to be the most entertaining case of my career," end quote. Gloria found a legal angle. In Texas, sperm donors typically have legal protection from parental responsibilities. But there were exceptions, particularly when the donor was known to the recipient, when proper legal agreements were not in place, or when the donation did not go through a licensed physician in the traditional sense. Our case was complicated because I did go through a licensed clinic, but I also knew the identity of the donor, which created a gray area. But Gloria had another card to play. She discovered that Derek's donor agreement with the clinic had irregularities. He had lied on his application. He had claimed he had no prior children and was not married at the time of his initial donation. But he had started donating while we were still legally married, and lying on donor paperwork could void certain protections. We filed a paternity suit in October of 2022. Derek was served papers at the car dealership on a Tuesday afternoon. I would have paid $1,000 to see his face when he read those documents, but unfortunately, I was at home changing diapers. He called me that night screaming, I mean full-on screaming, like someone had set his house on fire. I could hear Tiffany in the background asking what was wrong, and he was shouting at her to be quiet. He said I was crazy. He said there was no way those were his kids. He said I was making it up. I calmly told him to get a DNA test. He said he would, just to prove I was lying. The DNA test came back 2 weeks later, and the results confirmed what I already knew. Derek Holloway was the biological father of James, Oliver, and Sophie, a 99.97% match. Derek's lawyer tried to argue that sperm donor protections should apply. Gloria argued that the fraudulent donor application voided those protections. The case went back and forth for months, but in March of 2023, a judge ruled in my favor. Derek was declared the legal father and was ordered to pay child support for all 3 children, $4,200 per month. Tiffany was furious. She had apparently not known about the sperm donations, and finding out that her boyfriend had 47 biological children scattered across the state of Texas was not exactly what she signed up for. They started fighting constantly, but I was not done, not even close. See, during the legal proceedings, Gloria had obtained records from Lone Star Fertility. Derek had been one of their most prolific donors. Over 3 years, his samples had been used by dozens of families. The clinic had records of successful pregnancies, and the number was 47. Derek Holloway had 47 biological children. 47 kids walking around Texas, half of them with his blue eyes and that same stubborn chin. And he did not know a single one of them. When Gloria showed me that number, I had to sit down. 47. My triplets brought it to an even 50. 50 children from one man who told me he was not ready to be a father. 50 children from a guy who said I was too obsessed with having a baby. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Now, a normal person might have stopped there. I had my kids. I had my child support. I had one. But something about that number kept gnawing at me. 47 other mothers out there had used Derek's sperm, and most of them had no idea who the donor was. They had picked him out of a catalog just like I did. They thought their children's biological father was some anonymous, good-hearted Texan who wanted to help families. But the clinic had messed up. During the legal discovery process, Gloria's team found that Lone Star Fertility had a data breach in 2021. Donor information had been temporarily accessible on their patient portal due to a software glitch. Several mothers had already figured out who donor 8814 was. 3 of them had contacted the clinic demanding answers. The clinic had quietly settled with them and covered it up. Gloria saw an opportunity. She reached out to the 3 mothers who had already identified Derek. Through them, she connected with more. Word spread through an online donor sibling registry, one of those websites where families who use the same donor can connect with each other. Within 2 months, Gloria had been contacted by 12 mothers who had used donor 8814 and wanted to know more. I started having phone calls with some of these women. They were incredible. There was Maria, a nurse in Dallas who had twin boys using donor 8814. There was Jessica, a single mom in Houston who had picked Derek's profile because it said he played college sports and she wanted athletic genes for her son. There was Priya, an engineer in Austin who had used the donor with her wife because they wanted their kids to have blue eyes. Each of them had their own story, their own reasons, and none of them had any idea they had all picked the same guy. We formed a group chat, 12 mothers, 23 kids between them, all connected by one man's DNA. The group chat was called, quote, Donor 8814 Moms, end quote, and it was the most chaotic, hilarious, and occasionally heartbreaking thread I have ever been part of. Photos of kids who looked eerily similar were shared daily. Maria's twins had the same stubborn cowlick as my James. Jessica's son had Oliver's exact nose. It was like looking at a gallery of Derek clones in various ages and sizes. I decided to do something absolutely insane. I organized a family reunion. I know how that sounds, but hear me out. I rented a pavilion at Zilker Park in Austin for a Saturday afternoon in June of 2023. I set up a bounce house, a taco truck, and a banner that read, quote, The Holloway Family Reunion, end quote. I invited all 12 mothers who had contacted Gloria along with their children. That was 23 kids total, ranging from newborns to 4-year-olds. I also invited my sister Karen and a few friends to help manage the chaos. And then I invited Derek. I did not tell him what kind of reunion it was. I simply sent him a text that said his children wanted to meet him and that I was hosting a small gathering at Zilker Park. He assumed I meant the triplets. He showed up in his pickup truck wearing a Cowboys jersey and aviator sunglasses, looking like he did not have a care in the world. The look on his face when he saw 23 children running around a park with a banner that had his last name on it is something I will treasure for the rest of my life. He went white, genuinely pale, like someone had drained the blood right out of him. He turned to me and said, quote, Rachel, what the hell is this, end quote. And I smiled and said, quote, Derek, meet your family, end quote. One by one, the mothers came up and introduced themselves. This is Connor, he is 3, he has your eyes. This is Madison, she just turned 2, she loves baseball already. This is Jaden and Jaden's twin sister Jalen, they were born in 2021. Derek just stood there, mouth open, looking from kid to kid to kid. Then Tiffany arrived. She had apparently been tracking Derek's phone because she showed up about 20 minutes after he did, still in her tanning salon uniform. She took one look at the banner, one look at the sea of blue-eyed children, and one look at the 12 women standing around, and she completely lost it. The screaming match that followed was legendary. Tiffany called Derek every name in the book. Derek tried to explain that it was just a sperm bank, that it did not mean anything, that he did not even know these kids. Tiffany grabbed his car keys and threw them into the duck pond. An elderly couple on a nearby bench just watched the whole thing unfold like it was dinner theater. Tiffany left him that weekend. She packed her stuff, took the 2 dogs that were originally mine, and moved back in with her parents. Derek was alone in the apartment they had shared, with a child support order for $4,200 a month and a phone that would not stop ringing with calls from angry mothers. But the legal fallout was just getting started. Remember those 12 mothers Gloria had connected with? Well, once they knew who the donor was and once they saw that I had successfully obtained a child support ruling, 7 of them decided to pursue their own paternity suits. 7 different women in 7 different Texas counties, all filing against Derek Holloway. Gloria referred them to other attorneys in her network. The cases varied in strength depending on the circumstances, but the common thread was the same. Derek had lied on his donor application and the clinic had failed to properly verify his information. The legal protections that normally shielded donors were potentially compromised. The media fallout from the reunion was immediate. Someone at the park that day had been live streaming. A woman walking her dog had filmed the screaming match between Derek and Tiffany and posted it on TikTok. It got 2.3 million views in 48 hours. The comments were gold. People were tagging their friends, making memes, and someone even created a parody song called, quote, 47 Kids and Counting, end quote. Derek's life became a legal nightmare. He was served papers so many times that the process server knew him by first name. His car dealership fired him because he was missing too much work for court dates. He had to hire a lawyer he could not afford, and then another lawyer when the first one realized how many cases were coming. Meanwhile, Lone Star Fertility was in full panic mode. The data breach, the fraudulent donor application, the failure to verify information, it was all coming out. 3 of the mothers filed a class action lawsuit against the clinic. The Texas Attorney General's office opened an investigation. The clinic's insurance company dropped them. By the end of 2023, Lone Star Fertility had closed its doors permanently. I felt a little bad about the clinic, honestly. Dr. Vance had been wonderful to me and a lot of the staff were good people, but they had cut corners and people got hurt. That was not on me. As for Derek, the court rulings started coming in one by one. Not all 7 mothers won their cases. Texas law is complicated, and some judges ruled that the donor protections held despite the irregularities. But 4 of them did get favorable rulings, and Derek was ordered to pay varying amounts of child support to each. His lawyer called Gloria 12 times in 1 week trying to negotiate. He offered reduced payments, he offered lump sums he did not have, he begged for settlements. Gloria turned them all down. She was having too much fun. Let me do the math for you. $4,200 to me for the triplets, $1,500 to a woman named Jessica in Houston for her son, $1,100 to a woman named Danielle in San Antonio for her daughter, and $1,800 to a woman named Priya in Dallas for her twins. That is $8,600 per month in child support. For a man who had just lost his job, Derek tried to get the amounts reduced. His lawyer argued financial hardship. The judge in my case adjusted his payment down to $3,800 per month, but it was still more than he could afford on unemployment. He started driving for Uber and DoorDash to make ends meet. The man who left me because I was not fun enough was now delivering Chipotle burritos at 10 o'clock at night to pay child support for children he never wanted. And then the media found out. A reporter for the Austin American-Statesman had been covering the Lone Star Fertility class action, and she stumbled across the family reunion story. She called me for an interview. I said yes. The article came out in October of 2023, and it went viral. The headline was, quote, 1 donor, 50 children, the Texas sperm bank scandal that rocked a city, end quote. My phone did not stop buzzing for days. I had interview requests from newspapers, radio stations, bloggers, podcasters, and even a few late-night TV show producers who wanted me as a guest. The story resonated because it hit on everything people care about: betrayal, revenge, children, money, and the sheer audacity of using your ex-husband's own biological material against him without his knowledge. Within a week, I had been contacted by producers from 3 different podcast networks, 2 documentary companies, and a literary agent. My story was on Good Morning America, The Today Show, and about 50 different TikTok accounts. People were calling me everything from a genius to a villain. Some people said I was a hero for holding Derek accountable. Others said I was a monster for deliberately getting pregnant with my ex-husband's sperm. I did not care what anyone thought. I had my 3 beautiful babies, a child support check that came every month, and the satisfaction of knowing that the man who told me he was not ready for kids was now the biological father of 50. The last I heard, Derek was living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Round Rock, driving for Uber full-time, and dating nobody. Tiffany, the girl from the tanning salon who was supposed to be more fun than me, had moved on and was engaged to a dentist. I thought that was a nice touch. A dentist. My people. As for me, the triplets turned 3 last August. James is wild and fearless, just like his father used to be. Oliver is quiet and thoughtful, always watching, and Sophie is bossy and brilliant. which I like to think she got from me. They do not know the full story yet. Someday I will tell them, when they are old enough to understand. I also ended up signing a book deal. A publisher offered me $175,000 for the rights to my story. I used part of the advance to pay off the credit cards I maxed out buying those 14 sperm vials. The rest went into college funds for the kids. All 3 of them. My sister Megan still says what I did was unhinged. My therapist says it was a complex trauma response that happened to work out financially. Karen says it was the greatest revenge plot in the history of Austin, Texas. And Gloria, my pitbull lawyer, says it was the most fun she has ever had practicing law. The donor sibling group chat is still active. We have meetups every few months now. The kids are getting older and they are starting to notice how much they look alike. Last time we all got together, Maria's twins and my James spent the entire afternoon building a Lego tower together, and they had the same expression of concentration on their faces. That same furrowed brow, that same tongue sticking out slightly to the left. Derek's genes are strong. I will give him that. Some of the mothers have become my closest friends. Priya and her wife had me over for Thanksgiving last year. Jessica and I text almost every day. We are an unlikely sisterhood, bound together by one man's DNA and one fertility clinic's negligence. It is not the family I imagined when I was lying on that bathroom floor crying over pregnancy tests. But it is a family. A big, chaotic, beautiful family. I think about Derek sometimes. Not with anger anymore, and not with love either. Just with a kind of baffled amusement at how things turned out. He left me because he did not want kids. Now he has 50 of them. And every single month when that child support payment hits my bank account, I think about that text from Tiffany with the heart emoji, and I smile, because karma does not just come around. Sometimes karma comes around with triplets, a family reunion, and a class action lawsuit. And sometimes that is exactly what you deserve.